Sometimes what drains you the most isn't what's said, but what's implied. It's not the direct attack, but the compliment laced with poison. Have you ever left a conversation feeling empty without knowing exactly why? Have you tried to explain something to someone who always twists everything, making you feel guilty in the end? That's not coincidence. It's manipulation. But it's a kind of manipulation that doesn't shout, that doesn't come waving red flags. It arrives with a smile, with fake concern, with supposed kindness. Fake and manipulative people aren't always easy to spot. They know exactly what to say to seem trustworthy. They know how to position themselves as the victim, while pulling the invisible strings of your mind. And little by little, you start doubting yourself. You change decisions to please. You accept situations you don't want. You silence your intuition. This kind of presence doesn't invade, it seeps in. It settles into your routine, your interactions, your small habits. And before you realize it, you're living a life where you have to constantly watch your words. But what if you could spot these patterns before they consume you? What if there were a practical philosophy, tested over centuries, to protect your mental peace even when surrounded by falsehood? The Stoics knew the world is full of masks. That's why they developed clear, quiet, and powerful rules to avoid being corrupted. Let's talk about that. Stoicism was born in the midst of chaos. In the 3rd century BC, amid Athens' political crises, a man named Zeno of Citium began teaching a radical philosophy for his time. True strength isn't in what happens outside, but in what you build inside. From this idea came a doctrine of inner resistance. While the world tried to manipulate, seduce, attack, or corrupt, the Stoics trained their minds to remain steady, clear, and unshaken. They understood a hard truth. People will lie. They will flatter when they want something. They will twist facts to appear right. And often they'll do it with charm, with affection, with the appearance of friendship. But the Stoics weren't naive. They didn't respond with hatred. They responded with clarity. They didn't fight back with shouting, but with posture. They didn't play the game, they simply watched it. Epictetus, who lived as a slave, said, "If someone tries to offend you and you don't react, the offense dies in the air." Seneca, advisor to the emperor, warned, "He who lives to please ends up living to serve the worst of people." And Marcus Aurelius, sitting on the most powerful throne in the world, wrote in his journal, "The liar destroys himself. I don't need to help him with that." For the Stoics, the secret wasn't confronting every fake person. It was becoming someone unreachable by that kind of influence. And here comes the first great rule. The Stoics didn't label their enemies. They named their own virtues. And when facing any false or manipulative person, what protects you isn't the strength of your argument or the anger of your truth. It's the quiet cultivation of 4 inner pillars. The first is wisdom. It doesn't get fooled by excessive compliments. It isn't impressed by someone who speaks beautifully but acts poorly. Wisdom is the ability to see beyond words and notice intentions. It's the eye that detects the self-interest behind kindness, the pride behind forced humility, the control disguised as care. Without wisdom, you get pulled into the game. With wisdom, you see the ending before the first move. The second is courage. Because it's one thing to notice, another to act. Cutting ties with someone who manipulates you takes strength. You'll hear that you're overreacting, that you're being cold, that you'll end up alone. But the courage of the Stoic isn't about confronting head-on. It's about stepping away with firmness and dignity. The third is justice. False people want to provoke the worst in you. They want you to explode, to lash out, to sink to their level. But justice is keeping your integrity, even when the other side has none. It's refusing to repay evil with evil. It's not getting dirty just because someone threw mud at you. The fourth is temperance. This is the art of not overreacting, not falling into drama, not giving the manipulator a stage. Temperance is the self-control of someone who knows that real power comes from not letting yourself be affected. These 4 virtues are the Stoics' invisible shield. And when you carry them, you don't need to prove anything. Your presence alone is enough to show you're not easy ground for small games. Epictetus said, "Some things are up to us, others are not." This is the foundation of Stoic philosophy. Simple but powerful. You don't control what the other person feels. You don't control if someone will lie, manipulate, play the victim, or twist your words. You have no control over anyone else's character. But you control where you stand, who you walk with, how long you stay. The biggest trap when dealing with a manipulative person is trying to change them, explaining 1,000 times, showing proof, hoping they'll understand. But that's not strength. That's illusion. An illusion is exhausting. The dichotomy of control gives you a choice. Either you keep trying to control what doesn't depend on you, or you start acting on what does. You don't need to expose anyone, or win an argument, or prove you're right. You only need to decide what you'll tolerate, and where you'll spend your peace. The manipulator only has power as long as you play the game. As long as you answer, justify, insist. But when you understand that you're not responsible for saving anyone, that your energy is your responsibility, and that your silence is also a form of action, then something shifts. You don't flip the game. You leave it. And sometimes, leaving quietly is the loudest declaration of freedom. There's a powerful idea in Stoicism called Amor Fati. It means, love your fate. Not just accept, but embrace what happens, even the painful things, as part of your growth. Now stop and think. What if that fake person was exactly what you needed to learn to protect yourself? What if that manipulation was the wake-up call that taught you to set boundaries? What if that disappointment was the push you needed to come back to yourself? The Stoic doesn't stay stuck in resentment. He turns frustration into a lesson, wounded feelings into filters, and pain into clarity. Marcus Aurelius, betrayed by people close to him in the empire, wrote, "What hurts you also shapes you. What blocks you also molds you." It's not about romanticizing the harm done to you. It's about understanding that everything that comes your way, even manipulators, can be a mirror, a signal, an opportunity. The fake person shows you the value of truth. The manipulator shows you the power of firmness. And the deceiver teaches you the worth of real presence. Loving your fate means stopping the question, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did this come to teach me about myself?" The Stoic gives thanks, learns, and moves on, stronger, clear, and increasingly shielded from within. Not every manipulator yells. Some whisper. And precisely because of that, they're more dangerous. The Stoic doesn't live in paranoia, but he cultivates mindful attention. He trains his eyes to see what's beyond the words. You know that compliment that feels over the top? That person who lifts you up too much one day, and the next cuts you down with silence? Be careful. Excessive praise can be the manipulator's currency. They give you approval, and later demand obedience. Another subtle sign, emotional blackmail disguised as affection. Phrases like, "Oh, I thought you were different. After everything I've done for you? You hurt me just by saying that." These aren't expressions of love. They're strategies of control. The manipulator doesn't want understanding, they want control over how you feel. And the most common of all, guilt reversal. You try to calmly explain something, but by the end of the conversation you're apologizing for things you're not even sure you did. If you leave feeling drained, confused, or constantly guilty, it's not just your sensitivity. It's manipulation. The Stoic sees it but doesn't absorb it. He notices the pattern but doesn't react on impulse. He listens, but doesn't get contaminated. Because the manipulator's goal is to make you doubt yourself. The Stoic's goal is to stay centered, calm, and consistent. Not to take revenge, but to not lose himself. And that's where true protection lives. In the choice to remain clear-headed, even when the other tries to blind you with sweet words. The manipulator feeds on your haste. They want you to react, to justify yourself, to lose control. Because when you lose your center, they gain control. But the Stoic does the opposite. He doesn't launch forward, he observes. Not to get revenge, but to understand. Epictetus said, "Between stimulus and response there is a space, and in that space lies our freedom." That space is time. It's silence. It's the moment when you choose not to respond right away. Not to type in a rush. Not to give in to the urge to say something. The manipulator hates that. They want you to act with emotion, not reason. They want to provoke you so they can use your mistake as ammunition. But the Stoic doesn't fall into the speed trap. He slows down. He breathes. He analyzes. And when he decides to speak, he speaks with precision. Without over-explaining. Without trying to convince. Just with the firmness of someone who has nothing to hide, and therefore has nothing to prove. Silence, for the Stoic, isn't the absence of action. It's the presence of mastery. It's a sign that the mind is still in charge, not the ego. Because those who react expose themselves. Those who observe govern. The Stoic doesn't wait for chaos to train. He prepares ahead of time. In silence. Inwardly. Every day. One of the most powerful tools is Stoic journaling. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, every morning and every night. And there he reviewed his encounters, his conflicts, and the false people. Today you can do this too. Grab a notebook and write. Unfiltered. Who was I with today? What words sounded true but felt empty? How did I feel next to that person? Writing is the first step to identifying patterns that emotion hides. Manipulation survives on your distraction, and journaling brings your clarity back. The second practice is negative visualization. Before a tough meeting or tense encounter, imagine, what if this person attacks me with sarcasm? What if they try to shift the blame? How will I stay calm and firm? This exercise doesn't make you cold, it makes you prepared. A mind that has already envisioned the situation doesn't panic when it arrives. And the third anchor is Memento Mori, remembering death, not as fear, but as perspective. Is it really worth spending your life trying to convince someone who will never listen? Is that relationship worth the peace you sacrifice just to keep it alive? Memento Mori reminds you, you are here for only a breath, and that breath deserves to be spent in honest spaces with real people. These three practices won't remove the manipulator, but they shield you, and that is already more than enough. Seneca was an advisor to one of the most dangerous men in history, Nero. He lived surrounded by flatterers, political interests, and betrayals masked with smiles. He knew that at any moment one wrong word could cost him his life, and yet he kept his posture. He wrote about ethics, virtue, moderation, even while living at the heart of an empire of deceit. Epictetus was a slave. He endured absurd orders, was humiliated, tested. But he said, "You can chain my body, but not my mind." And it was that clarity that made him a master, even without rank, wealth, or power. Marcus Aurelius, emperor, was betrayed inside his own palace. He knew that many around him faked respect, and still, he wrote daily for himself, "The other's deceit doesn't touch me. I remain in my place." Centuries later, this same philosophy echoes. Today, leaders face false advice. Athletes deal with empty promises. Entrepreneurs confront interested smiles. And many choose the Stoic path: observe, understand, stay firm, and move on without contamination. I know people who walked away from toxic partnerships without making a scene, who quietly distanced themselves from manipulative groups, who preferred the peace of an authentic path over the applause of an incoherent crowd. These people didn't strike back. They didn't expose anyone. They didn't shout. But they won. Because the true victory of the Stoic isn't in destroying the enemy. It's in not becoming like them. Anger feels like justice, but often it's just wounded vanity. When someone lies about you, humiliates you, twists facts, the urge to retaliate is immediate. To expose, to shout, to prove you're right. But the Stoic knows, this is a trap. The manipulator wants a stage. They want to see you lose control. They want you to prove you're better, because in that moment you've already dropped to their level. Reacting with ego is losing your essence. It's stepping out of your own center to enter a theater where the other writes the script. Seneca said, "He who provokes your anger rules you. The one who can steal your peace governs you. And worse, makes you become what you most condemn." The Stoic doesn't stay silent out of cowardice, but out of awareness. He knows that by keeping self-control, the other loses power. Because the manipulator only wins when you step into their game. But they lose when you look them in the eye, breathe, and choose unshakable peace as your answer. Not every break needs to be announced. Not every withdrawal needs noise. Sometimes the greatest strength is leaving silently. No post, no indirect comment, no dramatic justification. The Stoic understands. Cutting off a toxic bond isn't revenge, it's emotional hygiene. You don't need to explain to someone who won't listen, or justify yourself to someone who has already decided to twist things, or prove anything to someone who never truly saw you. Epictetus taught, "Do not argue with those who twist things. Simply live in a way that your actions are unmistakable." When you walk away without needing a final act, without needing to win the argument, without waiting for recognition, that is pure maturity. Cutting ties quietly is an act of dignity. It's saying to yourself, "I don't need the other person to understand. I just need to be at peace." The manipulator expects reactions. They want drama. They want a stage. But when you simply walk away, with firmness and calm, you cut the cycle. You cut the influence. You cut the game. And silence becomes the greatest answer. If you want to live more truthfully, you'll need to learn how to handle falseness without letting it poison you. For that, I propose 3 Stoic challenges. Simple, but transformative. 1. The observation without reaction challenge. For an entire day, just observe. Don't clap back at sarcasm. Don't respond to provocations. Simply notice, what is this person trying to stir in me? When you observe, you escape manipulation. When you react, you step into the game. 2. The silence challenge. Choose a situation where you would normally over-explain and say nothing, neither attack nor defend. Simply withdraw or change the subject with calm and strength. This exercise strengthens the virtue of temperance, self-control. 3. The gradual withdrawal challenge. Identify a relationship that has been draining you and calmly start creating space. Fewer responses, less exposure, less energy invested. No confrontation needed, just clarity and decision. These challenges aren't about changing others. They're about shaping yourself. Because in the end, the true Stoic doesn't eliminate the false. They become someone who cannot be shaken by them. So tell me honestly, who in your life is disguising interest as affection? Who smiles sweetly, but drains you on the inside? Who praises you, but only when they're getting something in return? These people don't wear villain masks. They wear the clothes of friends, partners, companions. But deep down, what's there is game, not bond. Control, not care. And what does Stoicism teach you in the face of that? Not to shout, not to expose, not to pay back in kind. It teaches you to observe, to strengthen yourself inside, to walk away consciously without needing to justify. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Let not another's falseness steal your clarity." That's why philosophy is a tool for cleansing, for clarity, for separation. You don't need to fear cutting ties. You need the courage to keep only the true ones. So today, here's the invitation. Apply Stoicism not just in books or videos, but in your circle, in your routine, in your choices. Because in the end, living truthfully is an act of courage, silent but deep. And that courage, only you can practice.